I've often wondered, how did our Callanan ancestors get from Ireland to the United States? What was their journey to this place called America? So I decided to do some genealogical research. The story I'm about to tell has been pieced together using various archives, both on and offline, and personal family documents. Because record keeping in the 1800s can be difficult to locate or suffer from inaccuracies, I cannot claim 100% accuracy in this story. Now that I got the disclaimer out of the way, let's start our story. Once upon a time, there was a young man named James Callanan who was born around 1808 in Ireland. James had a son named Patrick who was born around 1835 in Ireland. Patrick traveled to the United States at age 23 aboard a clipper ship named Emerald Isle. Here's a rendering of what that ship looked like. He departed from Liverpool and he arrived in New York on July 27, 1858. His occupation was listed as a laborer. Elizabeth Kearney was born August 5, 1835 in Ireland. Elizabeth traveled with her family to the United States at age 9 aboard the ship United Kingdom, and she also departed from Liverpool in what is known as the Irish Gates of Liverpool. She arrived in New York on July 14, 1846. The majority of the 1.3 million Irish who fled the country during the Great Famine of the mid-1800s passed through the dock gates in Liverpool on their way to a better life and a new world. An assumption can be made that Patrick and Elizabeth were married sometime before January 1859, when their first child, Alice, was born. Records indicate that Alice was born in Mentham, Morris, New Jersey. As those of us know who grew up as Callanans, our family name is frequently misspelled, and in the 1800s, misspelling our name was no exception. On Alice's birth registry, her family name is listed as Callanan. Then, according to the 1860 New Jersey census, we were the Callanans. Patrick and Elizabeth also had a second daughter named Mary Callanan, with one L this time, who was born September 20th, 1860 in Mentham, Morris, New Jersey. 3 years later, they had a son, James W., who was born in September of 1863 in Mentham, Morris, New Jersey. It's not exactly known why Patrick and Elizabeth moved from New Jersey to New York after their first 3 children were born, but they did take up residence in Brooklyn. One reason why Patrick and Elizabeth may have moved back to New York was because Patrick's father, James, was dying. He died on July 5, 1864, at the age of 56. His death came just before the outbreak of smallpox, cholera, typhoid, scarlet fever, and yellow fever hit the East Coast of the United States. James was first buried in Calvary Cemetery in an unmarked grave. This was due to the overwhelming amount of people who passed away due to these epidemics, and they were unable to keep up with the burials. Some of the first evidence we have that the Callanans, also known as the Callahans, took up residence in New York comes from 1870 census data. According to the census document, Patrick worked in groceries, and they had 3 more children, John T., Mary E., and Patrick. Patrick and Elizabeth's second child, Mary, was not on the 1870 census. She had died in New York at age 4. At the time of her death, Patrick and Elizabeth purchased a plot in Calvary Cemetery. They exhumed Patrick's father, James, and moved him to be buried next to his granddaughter, Mary. According to the 1875 census data, we're still the Callahans. Patrick is now a welder, and Alice is working as a hat trimmer. They have 2 additional children now, Catherine and Margaret, and another child named Edward was listed on the document. This child cannot be found on any of our family history data. And then a miracle happened in 1880. The census taker finally spelled our name right. We're the Callanans. And Patrick is a steel welder. And Alice, she's moved out of the house by now and married John Karcher in 1880. Their son James was a laborer, John T. was working as a hatter, and the name Edward disappeared from our family. Patrick died on April 6, 1883 at age 48 from pneumonia. At his time of death, he was living at 354 Flushing Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. Here's a close-up view of a map where Patrick lived when he passed away. This is what that area looks like today in 2022. Thanks to Google Maps, here's a 2022 street view of that area. Elizabeth Kearney Callanan died on August 26, 1890 at age 55. She had died from bronchitis. When she passed away, she was living at 77 Spencer Street in Brooklyn, New York. Here's a close-up view of the 21st Ward in Brooklyn in 1890. Here's a current map of that area in 2022. Here's a view of that street now, thanks to Google Maps. As mentioned, many of the Callanan family had succumbed to lung issues from the pandemics of the 1800s. James, Patrick, Elizabeth, their daughters Mary, Alice, and Margaret, 2 of their grandchildren, Lizzie and Patrick, and an infant child, Thomas Kearney, all passed away from lung issues. All 9 family members were buried in the First Calvary Cemetery, Queens, New York, in the plot that Patrick purchased when his daughter Mary died in 1865. Plot M, Section 2, Avenue 18. In 2022, a group of Callanan descendants paid their respects to our ancestors who were buried in Patrick's unmarked family plot. Nearly 160 years later, our Callanan ancestors from Ireland finally got their monument. Thanks to the efforts of Callanan descendants and their family across the country, we were able to memorialize those who led the way for us. Now that we have a good idea how our ancestors got from Ireland to New York, how did we get to New Jersey? Well, our family descendant from Patrick and Elizabeth is John T. Callanan, who was born in Brooklyn on September 11, 1864, and he started working as a hatter at age 16. John T. was married to Marcella Robinson, who was born in New York on February 3, 1867. Marcella was the daughter of Michael Robinson and Catherine Traynor. They were from Dublin, Ireland. We can verify this information through baptismal records for Marcella's brother Henry and her twin brothers Bartholomeus and Laurentius. John and Marcella were married on Sunday, November 20th, 1887 in St. Ambrose Catholic Church, Brooklyn, New York. This church is still standing in Brooklyn, New York and is known as the Mount Pisgah Baptist Church. Shortly after their marriage, John and Marcella moved back to New Jersey, and according to the 1900 Newark census, they are now the Callahans with a G. Before they moved to New Jersey, John and Marcella had 3 children in Brooklyn: Patrick, Marcella, and John. Their young daughter, Marcella, passed away at 3 months old. . And when they arrived in New Jersey, John and Marcella had 7 more sons: James, Thomas, Albert, Joseph, George, Henry, and William. William L. is the most important sibling in my story, as he is my grandfather. William L. had 2 sons, William Jr. and James. I am the oldest of 2 daughters born to William L. Callanan, Jr. Marcella Robinson Callanan died in New Jersey on January 3, 1934. She was almost 67 years old. John T. Callanan died in New Jersey on August 18, 1942. He was almost 77 years old. Both were laid to rest in Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in East Orange, New Jersey. Sometime before his death, John T. left behind this detailed document of important family dates. He captured this history on United Hatters of North America letterhead. And that concludes the story I have of James, Patrick, and Elizabeth Callanan and their journey from Ireland to the United States. They led the way so we could live the dream.